All right, hello everybody. We are following up on our vow about recording everything I ever wrote. So, I said I was going to start chronologically, and that's basically how we're going to do it. So, as the title suggests, this is the first complete song I wrote with lyrics and instrumentation. So, I'm going to release a short later about the very first instrumental I ever composed because it's pretty repetitive, but there's a lot of stuff to cover, and I figured just starting from close to the very beginning is probably the best way possible. So, this song was written my freshman year. I'm going to play it, and then we'll do a little bit of analysis, and then perhaps we'll do a compare-contrast thing where I'll show a song that's much later, kind of break the chronology tradition, just so that way you guys can see how far I've come, and then maybe just keep going back and forth. Or maybe I'll just kind of progress through, like I said, chronologically. We'll see how it goes. But for now, this is the first song that I ever wrote. I never tried in school, I ditched class left and right. But some of that time I'd play card for. But the other times when I was feeling blue, I'd pull up a chair and play this guitar. I never had no job, I slept all day and night. Never had no cash, I stole to stay alive. And then one day my parents sat me down and said, you gotta get your head on straight and quit worrying about your past. And I said, it's not about my future, it's not about my past. All it is about now is making life a gas. 'Cause I don't care where I go or what I do, no, no, no. All I care about is living for today. I never had no girl, I just had a random place. Never stayed with one, I switched up every day. Then one day this lady came up to me and said, well, you got some time to kill, boy, you know I ain't dead yet. And I said, it's not about your future, it's not about your past. All it is about now is making life a gas. 'Cause I don't care where I go or what I do, no, no, no. All I care about is living for today. Oh, I'm living, yeah, I'm living only for today. Oh, so, like I said, that was the first complete song I ever wrote, and it was my freshman going into sophomore year. I think it was literally like the first week of sophomore. And let's kind of break down some of the lyrical stuff, right? So I was just starting to kind of get my feet wet when it came to writing. I had done a couple of instrumentals. I'd only been playing guitar for about 2.5 years at that point. And I mean, very simple chord progression, right? So we have an A to a G to a D to an A. That's just primarily what it is. I decided to kind of change the chords as to how I would play it, but back then, I'll freely admit, I had no idea that's even what the chords were. They just kind of all flew together, and maybe one day I'll make a video about how when you start progressing as a musician, you kind of realize just how much innovation you had when you didn't know what you were playing. But yeah, so I had that simple chord progression, and I wrote these lyrics, but the lyrics actually were from a different version of this song that I had originally showed to another band. It was the very first band I was ever in my freshman year. Some of the lyrics kind of changed to suit this version, but I'll briefly kind of talk about that original one, right? So, original structure of the song was supposed to kind of be like a Strokes song. I was going through a phase where I was like really into them, so I'll link to my album version of the song, and you can kind of hear the different vocal structure, which is kind of more reminiscent of that original version. But basically, breaking down the lyrics, I was still in school, and it was 100% true. I was never good at school, never cared about education, like, gave a fuck. So, never tried in school. I ditched class left and right. 100% true. What do we do when we're first writing? We take our own personal experiences and we use them as our template, right? Some of that time, I played COD 4. Modern Warfare was really huge back in that time period, and that's what I did. I was a gamer, so I was always usually playing video games or I was playing guitar, which leads into that next thing. The other times when I was feeling blue, I'd pull up a chair and play this guitar. I actually didn't own this guitar yet. I got this it was a graduation gift to myself my senior year. So I had a really cheap Kmart like acoustic, and then I'm pretty sure, yeah, that was the guitar that I had at that time. Keep in mind, I don't live with a guitar. I think we're just closing in on 2 years. So boom, we have our first verse down. Now we're continuing through. I never had a job. I slept all day and night, and that's true to an extent, right? So I actually had started working unofficially at about 9-10 years old because my dad owned his own audio video business. So I'd actually been working. Like, I was learning some videography stuff. I was doing more photography at the time. And I actually had a little bit of pocket cash. It was really weird because like no one else in my friend group, had money or anything. And I had the most money, but I didn't know what to do with that money. So I just had it and didn't do anything with it. But when I got into high school, I didn't do it as much. There was some personal stuff going on, and me and my dad weren't really connecting, so I kind of like didn't have anything anymore. So that became true. Like, I just didn't want to work. I didn't care about school. I was just kind of like drifting, and that's kind of the theme of the song, and we'll get more into that later on. So I did kind of go through a phase where I was a bit of a deviant, so it's not entirely accurate to say I stole all the time, but when you're a kid who's driftless and doesn't have anything, you definitely turn more towards the wrong end of the spectrum. So we'll not incriminate myself any further on that end. And then like my mom had kind of realized like I wasn't going anywhere, so she did sat me down to say, like, hey, you got to figure out what you're going to do with your life, because you're halfway through your high school career, and after that, like, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be? Are you going to go to college? Are you going to get into the workforce? What are you going to end up fucking doing? And this chorus is made up, but this is kind of the summary of what I was saying, which was like, hey, I don't really care what's going on. I feel like right now, I just want to worry about what's going on today. Like, I want to enjoy being a teen. I want to enjoy not having the stresses. I mean, I grew up in a time period where the 2008 financial crisis had happened, and we were poor again, so who wants to plan for a future when everything is so uncertain around you? And that's where I kind of refined that chorus to basically be like, it's not about your future, it's not about your past, all this is about is making life a gas, like kind of a forced rhyme there, but it was kind of true. I didn't care about when I was a younger kid and had some shit going on. I didn't give a fuck about the future that, was completely uncertain for me at that point. I just wanted to make sure that I was having fun and enjoying the high school experience that I was having, and just kind of go from there. And it was pretty punctual. Like, I don't care where I am or where I go, because all I care about is just living for today. And that conversation did end with like, I want to enjoy living for today, and that's kind of what had sparked it. The verses I had wrote when I was actually on my way home. Like I said, it was like the first week of fucking sophomore year. So I was around the bus and I was writing that. And then that conversation had came up just a little bit later. So then we go to the second verses, right? The third verse at that point. I never had a girl. I switched up, never had no girl. I switched up. Shit. So that's one of those things, right? Like, I haven't played this song forever. It's a very old song. We're going on 14 years old. 2010, 2013. No, even earlier. So yeah, 14, 15-year-old song. It's hard to remember all the lyrics, but all that stuff is kind of true. So when I was in high school, like, if my whole presentation hasn't solidified it, yeah, I was a little bit of a loser in high school. I did some things to kind of scrape by, and people knew who I was for a variety of reasons. But definitely did struggle a little bit with the girl department, but it was actually more of a me issue. Like, I went on dates, like, I had, I guess, a couple of girlfriends during my high school, but I didn't really care. Like, I, at the time, was really starting to get big on music and didn't really want any distractions. So I was kind of switching up and not really caring. And then there was one who I ended up kind of regretting that got away. And she was kind of the one who was just like, hey, you know, let's just have fun and stuff like that. And then I tie that in with, you know, refraining the chorus again. She's like, hey, you got some time to kill, you know I ain't dead yet. I don't really know what I was trying to go for. You know, like I said, very first song that I had written a full composition from, you know, songwriting and compositional structure. So it was kind of just something to get that point across. Afterwards, we go back to the chorus and kind of reiterate that same point that there's a lot of uncertainty with my future. I didn't really give a shit much about my past. I just want to make sure right here, right now, I'm living for today. And that was basically where I was and where I was going. So that is the story and the deconstruction of the very first full composition I ever wrote. Like I said, I'm going to do a short pretty much right after this and show the very first instrumental I ever wrote. I don't really think it warrants a full video because it's a very repetitive song, and I think after the first like 40 seconds you'll kind of get like, oh, okay, so this was him just stretching his wings, really getting more familiar with guitar. Some of the next songs that I'm going to follow from here, you're going to see where my narrative structure kind of stems from, and you'll start understanding why I really rely on my own personal experiences, because it just, A, feels more comfortable, B, I've experienced quite some interesting stuff, and C, there is like a really good narrative flow you can get yourself into when you're basically telling a story about yourself. It's almost like when you're having a conversation, right? Like, what am I doing right now? I'm having a conversation with a camera that I'm treating as just one person, but, you know, hundreds to thousands to, you know, hopefully millions can actually see this video and have that same level of contact. That's what being a showman is. That's what being a musician is. We're having a one-on-one conversation with every single person in our audience. And I think this song was a really good way to start showing everyone, like, hey, don't discredit me. Like, yes, this could be my very first song, but I have played this and no one, unless I say something, no one notices. There's still something to be said about a very simplified, almost like a snapshot of my youth kind of song that anytime I pull up, I can kind of reflect on. On that note, like I said, though, I am going to link my album version of the song, and you'll hear a little bit of a different vocal melody, and maybe you'll kind of hear my influences a bit more. But I kind of play it more as like a country tune now, where I kind of sing it a little bit lower. I give it a little bit more blues and soul. That's something I started doing around the time period that I released that song. But I'd say it's a more mature version of me playing it now, and it's kind of the best way that I like to do it. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that short where it shows my very first instrumental piece. And then next week we'll continue on and we'll start diving into some pre-album stuff. And then very rapidly get into my first album's worth of material. And that those videos are definitely going to be a little bit longer because they'll have way more stories tied behind them. So thank you all very much. Hope you enjoy. Have yourselves a good one.